The New York Rangers must stay the course with unrestricted free agent and still unsigned Alexis Lafreniere. We talk about why. Plus, Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, and several other Rangers will be playing in a hockey game next week. All this and much, much more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 877 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, wanted to kick off today's episode by discussing Alexis Lafreniere. And obviously, you look at the Ranger offseason and you go through free agency, and the Rangers bring in some low-cost guys from around the league, none of them making more than six figures this upcoming season. I think overall, it was a solid offseason for the Rangers, keeping their own guys in the fold and going out making the most out of the limited amount of cap space that they had remaining. And really, the only really big thing left to do, or what it would seem is the only big thing left to do, is Alexis Lafreniere, getting him under contract. He is a restricted free agent as of right now. We'll see when that comes to fruition. But I figure we might as well do an episode about Alexis Lafreniere. It's been a while since we've talked about him in great detail. And what I wanted to do today, just kind of an informal list, 5 reasons why I believe the Rangers should and ultimately will stay the course with Alexis Lafreniere. And, I know that there's some Ranger fans that obviously have strong opinions on Lafreniere. I think most Ranger fans want to keep him in the fold. There's some people that, are saying that maybe just trade him now while you can still get something for him. And, the dread B word, a couple of Ranger fans will occasionally call him a bust. I'm nowhere near that point yet. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Why don't we just go ahead, jump into the list? This is not like a ranking or anything like that. It might not even be the biggest 5 reasons. These are just, like I said, very casual 5 reasons I'm going to throw out there why Alexis Lafreniere should remain with the New York Rangers and why they should be patient with him and stay the course with him after basically lucking into drafting him in the first place, winning the draft lottery a couple of years ago. But the first reason I got here, if you move on from Alexis Lafreniere, you would be selling low. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's a fact. This guy was somebody that was labeled as a generational talent coming into the NHL and the best player available since Sidney Crosby, the whole 9 yards. I mean, every single scout just pretty much gushed about Alexis Lafreniere. Rangers luck into that first overall pick that season. And, I know, again, I mentioned this just a second ago, but I know there are some Ranger fans that'll look at this situation and say, you know what, just sell him now while you can still get something for him. I wouldn't do that. It would be, any way you slice it, a sell low situation if you were to move Alexis Lafreniere this offseason. And the Rangers are a win-now team. If you trade Lafreniere for a draft pick or even 2 draft picks, then it's going to be a while before any of those players are able to help the Rangers in any meaningful way. Obviously, this year's draft already happened, so you're not going to get any draft picks for this year. So you'd have to wait until next year at the earliest, and then you draft those players, and then they have to, finish up with their junior team, and then they need the AHL. In most cases, some guys will go right to the NHL, but for the most case, that's how it works. It's a process. It's at least a few years before draft picks make their NHL debuts. So it'll be a while. If the Rangers were to trade Lafreniere for draft picks, it'll be a while before those draft picks could ever do anything to help the Rangers in any meaningful way. So total sell low opportunity, and that's not something that I'm on board with when it comes to a player like Alexis Lafreniere. Second reason, the Rangers right now have no cap space. And this is kind of related to the first reason, but the Rangers right now, they barely have enough cap space to even get Alexis Lafreniere under contract. So if you were going to trade Lafreniere, there's a limit on which players you could bring back in any kind of a deal. Even if there's some ideal trade candidate somewhere out there, maybe like in the Western Conference, that we think has, tremendous upside and is still very young or at least somewhat young, and they would fit the Rangers great, and they would do this, that, and the other thing to help the Rangers. They would grow and blossom and be just a perfect fit for the Peter Laviolette-led Rangers. Maybe he's a Laviolette type of player. There's a very good chance that player that I'm describing, whoever it might be is making too much money. And again, with the Rangers with their salary cap situation, you're very much limited. You're very handcuffed if you were to trade Alexis Lafreniere on which NHL player you could even bring back in a trade. Because if that player is making like $4 million a season, you can't afford him. That puts you over the salary cap. I mean, you could always make some other move too, like trade Barclay Goodrow or something. But I mean, honestly, are we really going to bend over backwards this far to trade Alexis Lafreniere, a player with all this upside, for somebody that, might be making too much money or might not have the long-term potential that Alexis Lafreniere has? It just doesn't really make any sense to me. So dealing Lafreniere away for an NHLer, again, I just don't think that's the road to go down, because obviously it'd be hard to find somebody that both is an ideal fit for the Rangers and also isn't making enough money that it's going to give you salary cap problems. I mean, and imagine you trade Lafreniere for somebody that only has 1 year left on their contract, and then they walk this offseason as well. Again, you're going to have a really difficult time finding a player who's the perfect fit, both from a cap situation and also just from a skill and upside situation, that could be on par with Alexis Lafreniere. For the third reason, we are going to go with what I'm going to call here the Peter Laviolette factor. So, we've done a couple of crossover episodes with some other Locked On hosts. Big shout outs to Dan Homey of Locked On Washington Caps. Also, Nick Morgan of Locked On Predators. The episode with Nick was actually our most recent episode. And I think, look, we're all familiar with Peter Laviolette. He's obviously been around for a while, been a very successful coach in this league. As we all know, has taken 3 different teams to the finals, won a Stanley Cup with the Canes. But they gave us a little bit more intel on Peter Laviolette, having watched him day in and day out for several seasons each. And again, I do thank the host for doing that. But the one thing that stood out, and the one thing that I think both of them kind of confirmed, at least to some extent, is that both the other Locked On hosts, that is that Peter Laviolette has had success with young players. He seems to find a way to get the most out of them. We looked at rosters that Peter Laviolette was in charge of, the 3 different seasons that he took his team to the Stanley Cup final. And yeah, there were some veterans on those teams for sure, but there were also a lot of very young players and guys who, were just getting started in the NHL or just starting to maybe find their footing a little bit. And they went on, or in some cases are still having great NHL careers. And that all started with Peter Laviolette leading the way, and in many cases leading these players to the Stanley Cup finals in, whichever team it was, whether it was with the Caps, Flyers, or most recently the Predators. And, getting back to Lafreniere here, and, you can even throw Hedl and Kakko and even guys like Othman and Cooley into this mix as well. Young Ranger players, guys that they're expecting a lot from, in most cases, first-round picks. Everybody I just mentioned is a first-rounder except for Cooley. But I do think Lafreniere and probably these other guys as well, they're probably in the best hands with Peter Laviolette out of any of the recent Ranger coaches. Gerard Gallant, I'm thankful for what he did here. And obviously, look, that run to the conference final was awesome. I'll never forget it. It's one of the most fun seasons I've ever had watching Ranger hockey. Obviously, he didn't last as long as I think a lot of us thought that he might. Only 2 seasons. Before that, David Quinn was here for just 3 seasons. But I think of those 3 coaches, the guy that seems to be best at, or the guy with whom young players have the best opportunity to succeed, the most rope, I would say, is probably Peter Laviolette. Again, this is just going by his track record, looking at some of the rosters that he had when he had success and those other stops in his NHL career, and also going by some of the things that we found out from Dan Homey of Locked On Caps, as well as Nick Morgan from Locked On Predators. So the Laviolette factor, it does seem like he can get a lot out of young players, and that being the case, I think, Lafreniere might be in his best of a chance to succeed under Laviolette than he was with either the other 2 preceding coaches, Gallant and Quinn, while they were here, in better hands with Peter Laviolette. So reason number 4, and again, these aren't in any sort of specific order. It's not a ranking. It's just 5 reasons. Reason number 4, a lot of career highs for Alexis Lafreniere in this past season. This goes back to something that I've talked about with Kakko and Lafreniere specifically. They do seem to get a little bit better every season, but as I've said many times on here, we need a jump from these guys. We don't need, baby steps forward. We need a hop, skip, and a leap. You've heard me use that expression before. The everydayers have. That's what we need from Lafreniere and Kakko. It could happen at any minute. I think Tage Thompson, off the top of my head, is a recent great example of that. Basically was doing next to nothing for Buffalo and became just a fantastic player this past season. But when you look at Lafreniere, probably his best season of his career this past year. I know he didn't do anything in the playoffs. I mean, join the party as far as players on the New York Rangers. But when you look at what he did in the regular season, career high in games played with 81. The only game he missed was the healthy scratching. Career high with 23 assists, a career high 39 points, career high plus minus at plus 10. got the first 3 power play goals of his career, a career high 15-13 time on the ice per night, career highs even in block shots and in hits with 28 and 141 respectively. The only stat that I can point to that was not a career high that's somewhat discouraging is his shot percentage, because as a rookie, scored on 17.9% of his shots on goal. That goes down to 17.3 in his second year, dropped all the way down to 11.9% this past season. It doesn't seem like he's beating goalies clean all that often, or at least clearly not as often as you would like. But you just hope he gets there, and you hope that eventually comes with more opportunities that, I think Lafreniere has a better chance to get more opportunities under Laviolette than he did for either of the 2 preceding coaches. I think also the 5th reason here, another reason why you got to hold on to Lafreniere, when you look at just what happens during even strength, and I would love to find a stat that tells me, because we always hear points per game. How many points per game does this guy have? I want to see points per minute per 60 minutes spent on the ice. If anybody knows, I've been kind of scouring the internet here, if anybody knows a specific website that has that stat where I could look it up, I'd love to hear from you. But for the time being, I'll just say, to compare him to other Rangers who kind of have similar numbers when it comes to even strength points. So Lafreniere last year, 29 even strength points total. And there weren't too many players on the Rangers that had a significant edge on him in that department. The only 3 that were significantly ahead of Alexis Lafreniere when it comes to even strength points are Artemi Panarin. He had 50, and also Mika Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck. They each had 40 even strength points. Beyond that, nobody had on the Rangers more than 6 even strength points more than Alexis Lafreniere. You had Philip Hedl, who had 35. Adam Fox had 34. We'll include Patrick Kane on this list, even though he split the season between Chicago and the Rangers. He had 33 even strength points, did miss 9 games last year. Capo Caco had 32 even strength points, so just a shade ahead of Lafreniere. Keandre Miller had 31. And we'll also include Vladimir Tarasenko. He had 31 even strength points. Again, he split last season between the Blues and the Rangers. He also missed 13 games. But, when guys like Kane and Tarasenko and even Hedl and Adam Fox, and I know Fox is defenseman, but still, when those guys are not significantly ahead of Alexis Lafreniere, it does make your eyebrows go up a little bit. And one name you'll notice that I did not mention here, as far as even strength points is concerned, is Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider, 28 even strength points last year, 1 less than Alexis Lafreniere. And that's all well and good. I mean, I'm not bashing Chris Kreider or anything like that. We know he does a lot of his damage on the power play, but it does, again, make your eyebrows go up when you take a look at somebody like Chris Kreider, compare him to Alexis Lafreniere, and realize that Lafreniere, despite significantly less time on the ice, had more even strength points last year than Chris Kreider. So I do think he's been improving season by season, and this is not the time to sell very low on Alexis Lafreniere. Give him some chances. Let him earn a spot in the top 6. Hopefully get him out there for some decent power play time this year as well, and just stay the course with Alexis Lafreniere. Obviously, we're going to keep an eye on his contract situation here on Locked On New York Rangers. And whenever he does sign a new deal, obviously that'll be the topic of our next episode. But I want to shift gears in just a second here. There's something that I want to talk about that involves the Rangers. It is a charity event that will be occurring in Stamford, Connecticut, and several Rangers are going to take part in it. That will happen this upcoming Thursday, August 3rd, once again in Stamford, Connecticut. We'll give you the details about that in just a second and talk about some of the other Rangers that are going to participate. But first, we do have to let everybody know today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There is no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank everybody, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And for the everydayers, stick around. I think in our next episode, we might, assuming Lafreniere doesn't sign his new contract between now and then, we're going to continue with our off-season series of best and worst case scenarios, or we're going to hone in on the right defenseman for the Rangers. But we'll look forward to that. Right now, though, I want to shift our attention to a charity hockey game that will be occurring exactly 1 week from today. Today is Thursday, July 27th. It'll be happening on Thursday, August 3rd. It will be happening at the Terry Connors Ice Rink in Stamford, Connecticut. It is the HT40 Foundation's Shoulder Check Showcase, and all proceeds from the ticket sales will go to the HT40 Foundation. I'm going to elaborate on what the HT40 Foundation is in just a second and what it entails and what the cause is for. We'll get to that in just a second. I did want to quickly, though, go through a roll call of the New York Rangers. They're going to be participating in what I think is, a wonderful event. And like I said, I'll talk more about the event in just a second. But for a quick roll call, as far as the Rangers that are going to be there, you've got Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, Adam Fox, Barclay Goodrow, and Jonathan Quick. I saw Jacob Trouba mentioned in an article, but I actually don't see him on the official website, so I'm not 100% sure there, but obviously nice to see a lot of Rangers participating in something like this. Other pro hockey players that will join these Rangers at the Shoulder Check Showcase, they include Connecticut Whale players Hannah Beatty and Whale alternate captain Emma Vlasic. Other NHLers from around the league that are going to be there include former Ranger Kevin Shattenkirk. You've also got Trevor Zegras participating, Brett Pesce, Sonny Milano, Spencer Knight, Peyton Krebs, and several others as well. Some of these players, some of you may know, have ties to Connecticut or in some cases even grew up here. And former Ranger, an actual former Locked On New York Rangers guest, Marty St. Louis, he's going to be a coach for the event as well. So back to the foundation. What is the HT40 Foundation? What is the Shoulder Check Showcase? So HT40 was founded in honor of the late Hayden Thorson. He was a hockey player from Darien, Connecticut. He passed away last year, tragically, at the age of 16. And, obviously visiting the website and talking to a couple of people from Terry Connors Ice Rink who are going to help put this whole thing together. I have a feel, obviously for what the foundation is and what its goals are and everything like that. But I figure they can explain it better than I can. I'm going to read you guys a couple of excerpts straight from the HT40 website and the Shoulder Check Showcase website as well. And this is right from the website. HT40 is a foundation dedicated to bringing people together through kindness and compassion to inspire a culture of support through small actions that have a big impact, making certain no one feels alone. It's a fact. Small actions matter more than you know. HT40 is on a mission to prove it by doing exactly as one young man did himself, show up with kindness. And to just kind of elaborate on Hayden Thorson, once again, passed away tragically just this past year. And he is the inspiration for the creation of this foundation, the HT40 Foundation. He was a hockey player, once again, from Darien, Connecticut. And, he obviously passed away tragically last year, attended Darien High School, and was a goalie for the Mid-Fairfield Junior Rangers. And just to kind of give you an idea of who he was, again, I never had the privilege of meeting this young man, but there are some quotes on the website, and they seem to be anonymous, but obviously some of these people were friends of Hayden. Some of them were, also teammates on the ice. And for the record, Hayden actually played goalie, during his hockey playing days. But just a couple of quotes to give you an idea of the kind of person that he was. I've never met someone as likable as Hayden. He was so disarmingly charming that I would just marvel at him. I feel lucky to have known him. He made so many people happy just to be around him, and you were so damn glad just to have him in your class. Another one here. Hayden would take anyone in, talk to everyone. He would never turn someone away. He somehow managed to make everyone feel special. Everyone knew I wasn't the best player on the team, but Hayden always made me feel like I was. Obviously, that's somebody that played hockey with him. And then one more quote here. I don't really talk to many people, and I know I'm sort of seen as an outsider, but Hayden would always talk to me as a friend like he did with everyone. And, just for a little bit of his hockey background, obviously, listen, whatever he did on a hockey rink, obviously it's something that he enjoyed. It's very secondary compared to what, again, was a tragic loss of life, but I feel like it's at least worth mentioning here for sure, just kind of pay tribute to Hayden Thorson. So he competed in national championships with the New Jersey Titans as well as the New Jersey Colonials. And, in the past, it's funny because I've talked about how elite prospects, I've kind of joked in the past how, like, they start tracking your hockey stats from the time that, you first lace up a pair of skates and you're out there, like at 5 years old. I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit to make the point, but there is one season listed for Hayden Thorson. He played on a 14 and under team. This is from a few years ago. He appeared in 9 games, and once again, he was a goalie. 9 games, a goals against average of 1.25 and a save percentage of 923. So obviously, a fantastic season for him there. But, I just got to say, I just think it's awesome that obviously at least 5 former Rangers, if not more. Again, I'm not 100% on if Trouba's going to be there. The articles say that, or the articles that I saw at least say that he will be there. Didn't see him on the official website, but we'll wait and see. But obviously, a handful of Rangers going to participate in this event. And, seeing somebody like Chris Kreider on this specifically, and obviously there's a lot of Ranger players who are very generous with their time and making donations to various causes and various foundations, whatever it might be, charity foundations. The Garden of Dreams Foundation certainly spring to mind. But Kreider, I mean, he has spent a lot of time working with the Garden of Dreams Foundation. My understanding is that he doesn't just, pop in for a quick hello all the time. There's times where, he'll actually stay in touch with these kids. So to see him participate in something like this should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody who's at all familiar with Chris Kreider. And obviously, a lot of these other Rangers have reputations of being good guys off the ice as well. Jonathan Quick, obviously, he's new to the Rangers, but I do know, from covering local sports in the area that he always, or not always, but I mean, I have definitely seen times where during the NHL offseason, he'll come back to Connecticut. He'll hold some hockey camps for some young players, and obviously, once again, very generous with his time and just giving back to the community. So it's great to see so many Rangers participating. Great to see so many hockey players participating. And my understanding is that there's a very good chance that this event will sell out. Terry Connors, I've been in there a bunch of times, once again, covering the local sports. It is one of the bigger rinks in the area. But yeah, I have no problem believing that this event will ultimately sell out. And then the last little bit of news that I want to share here, it is at least possible that I will be attending this event. I've reached out to a couple of the fine people from the Terry Connors ice rink, and they've been very warm and welcoming and kind of accepting, at least, hearing me out and potentially having me cover the event, potentially getting media credentials. So a big thanks goes out to all of them. And we're going to wait and see if that ends up happening, if I get media credentials. I'm not sure, exactly, like, will I have access to talk to some of the players about the event? We'll see how that whole thing shakes out. But regardless, I'm just looking forward to attending it in any manner, because it is something that's kind of near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. It is for a good cause. It's something that, the HT40 Foundation has a simple message, but something that's still, very powerful and very, just very striking. And it's a great message, making sure that everybody feels included and nobody feels alone. And, obviously an event like this, I think raises awareness for that. And again, just the coolest thing ever that so many players in the AHL and specifically the Rangers are ready, willing, and eager to participate in something like this. So I'm very much looking forward to the event and just seeing how it goes. We are going to turn our attention in just a second here. Maybe some of you are going to it as well. And if that is the case, definitely reach out to me. Let me know. Like I said, I'm hoping to attend it in one manner or another. So if you're there, I'd love to come over, shake your hand, meet you, talk to you a little bit. Just say hi, whatever it might be. Definitely looking forward to this event in general. In just a second, though, we are going to turn our attention and wrap up today's episode by talking a little bit about the final New York Ranger draft pick from this year's class. We will be doing that in just a second. All right, so let's go ahead, keep everything rolling here. Throughout the offseason, whenever we've had a little bit of time, we've been talking about every single member of the New York Rangers 2023 draft class. And obviously, we've just gone through the whole things here, beginning with Gabe Perreault, and now wrapping up with the 5th and final player that the Rangers selected in the 2023 NHL draft. And that would be Ty Henricks, a left winger that the Rangers took in the 6th round at number 183 overall. And this is actually just 5 picks after they took Rubric with their other 6th round draft pick. But as far as Henricks is concerned, another big kid, just 18 years old, but he is 6'5", 205 pounds, also a lefty shot. As far as what Henricks has done in his hockey career so far, this past season, he was traded from the Fargo Force to the Muskegon Lumberjacks. Both teams play in the USHL. And if we combine the numbers from both of those two teams this past year for Henricks, he skated in 47 games, had 9 goals and 10 assists, was also a +3. In 2021-2022, I got to share these stats because they're just insane. It was on an under 16 team, under 16 AAA team to be exact, but he played on the Anaheim Junior Ducks, skated in 60 games with them, scored 68 goals and had 55 assists. So 123 points in 60 games, more than 2 points per game. Look, I realize an under 16 team is not the NHL. I get that. But anytime somebody puts up numbers like that at any level of hockey, I just have to marvel about it. And I just have to certainly share it on this podcast as well. So obviously tremendously impressive numbers there. As far as the USHL is concerned, Henricks has said that he plans on returning next season to Muskegon before going on to start his college hockey career in Western Michigan University. And there was actually a story on Henricks in the Post from Bell Fraser that said that Henricks didn't hear his name called when the Rangers drafted him. Kind of a funny story here. And in Bell Fraser's story, Henricks had this to say about the situation. Me and my dad were sitting down on the couch watching the draft, and he saw it before I did. He jumped up and he told me, "Ty, you got drafted." And we both jumped up and hugged each other. It was such a great moment. Henricks shared this story, by the way, with the reporters after day 3 of the Rangers 4-day development camp that, wrapped up just a couple of weeks ago here. So obviously a pretty cool story there. And, Henricks also mentioned that he felt like he grew at Ranger development camp, especially with his skating. A couple of quotes that he had in an interview that was posted on YouTube. It was a great learning experience, learning how to be a pro. Henricks also scored a couple of goals during some of the scrimmages. And of those, he said, it felt great. My teammates set me up, just took the opportunity and scored. Mentioned that he felt comfortable. Also talked about wanting to win a championship at Muskegon. And once again, identified skating as the area of his game that needs the most work. So it's good to know that he'll be working on that. And we'll see. You never know. With late round draft picks that are going to go on to potentially have big careers in the NHL, or at least solid, steady careers. And, other guys don't make it that far, but, Henricks, he does seem to have a good head on his shoulders, the little that I've seen of him as far as interviews are concerned. And, we'll wait and see. Obviously, he's not going to be debuting with the Rangers this upcoming season. I think that probably goes without saying, but he'll have one more year in the USHL. He'll have his college career to look forward to as well. And then we'll see where things stand and how the Rangers want to, move forward with Henricks. But that's a wrap as far as all the New York Ranger draft picks are concerned from this year's class. And, overall, I think the Rangers did well. Gabe Perreault just kind of fell into their lap. That was awesome. People feel pretty good about Drew Fortescue, the defenseman that they took in the 3rd round. And, by the time you get into the later rounds, to me, it's just a dart throw. So if you see something that you like, if somebody has big time size or big time speed or has a nasty shot or whatever it is, maybe there's other areas of their game that you have to work on. That's usually the case when you're dealing with late round NHL draft picks. But I've got no issue with really any of the picks that the Rangers made. I think overall it was a solid class, only 5 picks, but I do think they made the most of them. And like I said, once you get into the later rounds with guys like Henricks and Rubrick, it does become a little bit of a crapshoot, a little bit of a dart throw. But, the Rangers, you look at some of the numbers that he's put up at the USHL, that insane under 16 season that he had. He's obviously got great size. Size doesn't slump. It's always going to be there. So, again, I think it's a solid late round draft pick for what it was. I figure we could pretty much call it there for today. Only other thing I want to mention, 2 things actually. For starters, we're going to be doing pretty soon, or in the not too distant future, our episode about Derek Stepan scoring in overtime in Game 7 against the Washington Capitals. If you have a story to share from that, where you were, who you were with, how you reacted when Stepan scored in overtime in Game 7, definitely send it my way. Either DM it to me on Twitter or email it to me. Don't leave it in the YouTube comment section. It's going to get lost in the shuffle. Either DM it to me or email it to me, and I'll share that on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Really looking forward to doing that episode, just like we did with our Artemi Panarin episode this past offseason. And then finally, a reminder to anybody that played in the Locked On New York Rangers Fantasy Hockey League this past season. If you played last year, go ahead and once again, either email me or DM me. That's all you have to do. And you will secure your spot for this upcoming season. After a certain amount of time goes by here, though, if I haven't heard back from everybody, we do want to open it up for people who haven't played last year. And if you did not play last year and you'd like to get in this year, email me or DM me. We'll save your spot in line. We'll see if we can work you into the league this year as well. But we do want to give people that have been playing the last few years the first chance. As far as a roll call from this past year, right now I've got 10 people listed for the league. We can do up to 20 players, which is what we've done every year that we've done this. There's always 20 owners in the league, 20 teams. But this is the roll call of people that have confirmed their participation for this upcoming season. Obviously, I'm going to play looking for my third straight championship, by the way. You guys are going to have to bring it if you want to knock me off from the top of the mountain here. But we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be back. We've also got Justin. We've got Eddie. We've got Corey. We've got Ryan. We've got Dan S. We've got Robbie. And we've got Steven. Then there's also two that I haven't heard back from specifically, but I saw on the website that they've made some changes to their team name. So I assume that means you're back, Xavier and Michael. So we've got 10 back. Again, if you played last year and you want to come back this year, email me or DM me as soon as possible. And if you did not play this past year, but you want to save your spot in line, then do the same thing. Either email me or DM me. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, thank you as always for tuning in to Locked On New York Rangers podcast, your team every day. If you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.